Hi, I'm Bob. I'm a Lutheran member of the ELCA. I'm at Syracuse, New York, and a member of King of Kings Lutheran Church here. I've served on a variety of different committees and been council member. And my day job is that I'm a geneticist, specifically a clinical geneticist, meaning that I'm a physician and I see patients who have or might have a genetic disorder. They might already have a health problem that we're trying to figure out whether there's a genetic reason for it, or they might know that they have some risk factor in their family and they're not having a problem at the moment, but would like to know whether they've inherited that risk factor. So day by day, I see people who are facing these kinds of concerns and questions and decisions. And I'm also a teacher. I teach medical students at our local medical school here in Syracuse. Working as a geneticist, I'm constantly meeting people who are facing existential questions and sometimes crises that have to do with how they are constructed biologically. If I have inherited a genetic factor that's going to put me at serious risk of a major health problem, it's part of who I am. It's part of how I came to be here. And that overlaps very extensively with my notions of why I'm here in the first place, who I am, whose I am, and how God interacts with, supports, and sustains me and all the people to whom God is sending me as an agent of healing and encouragement. So on one occasion, I was called to the neonatal intensive care unit to see a newborn, a day-old baby, who was already at that point having seizures that were hard to control. The baby didn't look terribly different from other babies, had some features that were a little bit different, but not dramatic things. And we undertook to do some testing to try to figure out if we could understand why this was going on. While the tests were pending, the situation continued to deteriorate. And by the time the tests came back unhelpful, that is, we didn't really have an explanation, the baby was in such straits that the family had decided to stop struggling and to allow him to die. So he died 1 month after he was born. In my interactions with the parents, I was greatly impressed by the wonderful combination of human tenderness and also high intelligence, and also deep faith in their Islamic background. That these were observant and cultured and smart and devoted people who were, of course, also now devastated. We ended up actually developing a friendship outside of the medical relationship, and are still in touch now that they are moved to another part of the country, both having major positions in their society, in their local society, as professionals who are carrying on exciting careers, and also now raising 3 beautiful little boys who are all fine and healthy. So the conversations that started there and continued and have continued now for close to 10 years have been enlightening for me because of the ability for me to have an opportunity to interact with somebody with deep religious faith and conviction from a completely different tradition. and so especially the husband/father and I have developed a wonderful friendship. Science is a specific set of ways to answer questions. That set of ways to answer questions depends on the ability for us to observe the natural world around us. We, of course, use our eyes and ears and fingertips, and occasionally our senses of taste and smell. But those get us very little by way of in-depth knowledge. For example, if one looks around at the world, it appears that we are probably standing on a flat surface. So it takes some other set of information besides the immediately obvious set of information to tell us that we're not on a flat surface, but actually on a curved surface. The person who proved that, it was Ptolemy in the 2nd century, and he proved it by comparing his notes of a solar eclipse with the notes taken by a colleague in a different part of the civilized world. And they realized that the sundial that they used to set the time of day, to know what time of day they were observing the solar eclipse, showed that it occurred at a different time of day for him compared to his colleague. And he realized that the only possible way that would be true would be if the Earth was curved. He also noticed that when you're in a ship on the Mediterranean Sea going to someplace, the island to which you're going is completely invisible. When it first becomes visible, all you see is the mountaintops. And then as you get closer, you start seeing things that are lower until you finally see the city at the shore. And that could only be possible if the surface of the Earth were curved. So he even made a calculation of what the diameter of the Earth was. Turned out to be a very incorrect estimate, but the point is that he understood that the Earth is curved. So we depend on using our brains and now also using instruments that give us information that we cannot possibly obtain by only the use of our natural faculties. So God gave us the microscope and the telescope, both in the 17th century, one early in the 17th century, the other later in the 17th century. And so Galileo could start seeing the moons of Jupiter going around the planet, and Leeuwenhoek could start seeing microorganisms under the microscope, early 1600s, late 1600s. And God gives us those two instruments. Now God's given us other instruments since then that allow us to dive even deeper into the immensities of the universe and the immensely tiny things of subatomic particles. And so the things we've learned by the extension of our senses have made it clear to us that the universe is too big to be only 6,000 years old, and also that its components are too small to be explained by anything other than the basic laws of physics. And from that comes the insights that teach us about the age of the universe being 13.7 billion years, and the evolution of biological organisms explaining the fossil record, etc. All of that comes from the proper use of our instruments and our intelligence. Now, God gave us the instruments and the intelligence. That's where those come from. They come from the ability to think. And the ability to think is one of the greatest of God's gifts to us. This is why our ability to believe in the gifts of grace that come to us through Christ is one thing, and the ability to use a microscope and a telescope is another thing, but they are not divorced from each other. They are both activities inspired by, supported by, and driven by our desire to understand God and God's creation better, and to make better use of all the gifts.